Bum, bum, bum.
This is Today with Mellower. It's been some time since my guest was last here, but he's come back to talk with me.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
The pipes are loud. I asked your producer.
This is Kronos, although I'm sure he needs no introduction. Kronos, you've had quite a year.
Actually, a stellar year, Matt.
Anyways, he is here to talk about his life, which is muy interesante. We also have Rhea backstage, who is going to share her life as well. So Kronos, do you have any special skills?
Well, Matt, I'm a very good competitive eater, if I may say. Also, I can control time, if I really want to.
That's pretty cool, I'll have to admit. When did you... Okay, maybe you should put the pipe down. Okay, good job. When did you get those powers?
Well, when I became a strong young teen, I figured out what I could do. It took me a while to learn to use the powers, but as I got stronger, it got easier, just like most things.
Of course. What would be an example of a time when you would use your powers?
In battle, or if I get rushed or impatient with something, I might tweak the time a little bit. Or if there's a lot of money involved in an eating competition, I enter my name, just jot it down, and win every time.
Oh, of course. So would you call yourself good or bad?
By most of the world's standards, bad. Pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very bad. Definitely, I would say not good.
Yeah, probably not. What did you do in your childhood that you remember most?
Well, I overthrew my father Uranus, and I took over as king of the world, basically. You know, no big deal. No biggie. That's when time began for everyone. And I'm the Titan god of time, if you haven't figured that out.
I had an idea. Makes sense. Is it true that you cut off your father's genitals, basically?
Yes, and it actually wasn't very easy, believe me. Actually, I brought some of that with me today. Ball boy, please. That's, when I did this, it separated heaven and earth, and I became king of heaven.
I don't think you're allowed to bring those in here.
Too late now, huh?
Get those out of here. Get those out of here.
Thank you, ball boy. Thank you.
I don't appreciate that behavior. You and Rhea had children, correct?
Yes, sadly.
Why is that sad?
Well, I had heard a prophecy that a child of mine would overthrow me just like I did to my father Uranus with the help of my mother Rhea, goddess of the earth. I couldn't let this happen, so I tried everything I could to avoid it. That was probably the worst thing I could have done.
Kronos, what did you do to avoid being overthrown?
Well, Matt, I did the simplest thing I could think of, and I ate my children.
Seems simple enough.
Just scarfed them up.
Did it work out?
No, sir, it didn't. Thank you for asking. My crazy wife and my youngest son ruined it.
How did that happen?
My wife, Rhea, of course, who was backstage, stole my son Zeus from me and hid him in a cave on the island Crete.
Didn't you notice?
Well, no. She gave me a substitute, which I immediately swallowed. Turns out it was a rock. A big rock.
You know a god and a rock probably don't taste much alike. But you didn't notice?
My taste buds don't work very well. Probably from all those spicy eating competitions. That's really the only thing that I can think of. I know, I feel bad.
You should. What happened with Zeus?
Well, he grew up, made me throw up his brothers and sisters, and they all overthrew me. The prophecy came true, etc., etc. I'm kind of a low life. I ended up here.
Well, thank you for being here today. And now we would like to bring in Rhea as our second guest.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome. Welcome, Rhea, and thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Alright, let's get right to it. Is it true that Kronos was your husband?
Yes, of course. He was also my brother. We shared as king, queen of heaven together.
Alrighty. Have you ever considered yourself a bad goddess?
Sometimes I feel bad because Kronos was my husband, but I'm not a bad goddess. I've always had a good conscience.
Well, good. What are you considered goddess of?
Well, I am called the Great Mother because of my children. Titan goddess of female fertility, motherhood, and generation. I'm also a goddess of comfort and ease.
Are you proud of what you represent?
Being a girl, these are all the things I love the most, and I'm very glad that I represent these things.
What would you call your greatest accomplishment?
Obviously, I take pride in being a good mother, and I would say my beautiful children that live on Olympus are my greatest accomplishments.
Okay, after Kronos ate all of your previous children, why did you continue having children?
I knew about the prophecy, and so I guess I was waiting for it to happen, and I took it into my own hands with my final child.
Were you and Kronos a good couple? How would you describe your marriage?
I hated it. He was not a very romantic guy, and he was very intimidating and powerful. I felt I had to be very careful and do whatever he wanted because he might hurt me. I'll describe it as one-sided.
Would you agree you had good children, or did you hate them?
No, I had good children. Kronos hated them, though, just because they were so much like him and much more powerful.
So, you did have very good and powerful children.
Yes. Come on, man. That's no question.
Do you think that came from Kronos or from you?
Of course it came from me. I'm known for being such a good mother, and you know that.
I'm lost.
Really? I'm trying to do that so good. I had it perfectly nailed down.
Alright, fine, again.
What do you?
Welcome, Rhea. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Alright, let's get right to it. Your husband was Kronos, correct?
Yes, of course. He was also my brother. We shared his king and queen of heaven together.
That's kinda weird. Have you ever considered yourself a bad goddess?
Sometimes I feel bad because Kronos was my husband, but I'm not a bad goddess. I've always had a good conscience.
Well, good. What are you considered goddess of?
Well, I'm called the Great Mother because of my children. Titan goddess of female fertility, motherhood, and generation. I'm also a goddess of comfort and ease.
Are you proud of what you represent?
Being a girl, these are all things I love the most, and I very represent these things.
What would you call your greatest accomplishment?
Obviously, I take pride in being a good mother. I would say my beautiful children that live on Olympus are my greatest accomplishments.
Okay, I want to say all of your previous children. Why did you continue having them?
I knew about the prophecy, waiting for it to happen, and then I took it into my own hands with my final child.
Were you and Kronos a good couple? How would you describe your marriage?
I hated it. He was not a very romantic guy, and he was very intimidating and powerful. I felt I had to be very careful and do whatever he wanted, because he might hurt me. I'll describe it as one-sided.
Would you agree you had good children, or did you hate them?
No, I had good children. Kronos hated them, though, just because they were so much like him, but much more powerful.
So, you did have very good and powerful children. Do you think that came from Kronos, or from you?
Came from me, of course. That's a dumb question. I'm known for being such a good mother, you know that.
Sure. How long have you been planning to save a kid and trick Kronos?
Actually, not very long. I was seeing if it would come true on its own, but then I figured out my own plan. I used the plan on my very next child, Zeus.
You used a rock as your fake child, Kronos said. How did you present that?
I just wrapped it in some blankets like the baby enough to eat it.
He suspected nothing?
No, he never thought I would do anything like that. I'd always been pretty nice to him, I would say. After all the other kids, it was just routine for him to take what I gave him and eat it.
Well, good. You played your part very well, and we are glad that you did that. With all of this, Kronos must have made a huge mistake somewhere. Final Jeopardy! What do you think that mistake was?
Kronos did make a huge mistake, and it was made by many gods, goddesses, and people. He tried very hard to avoid being thrown over. It was his fate, though, and he knew it. Trying to avoid it made him faster.
There you have it, everyone. Thank you very much for being here today, Rhea.
No problem. Thanks, Matt.
When we come back, a check of the weather with Al.
Boom, boom, boom.